This video will look at aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration takes place over two stages. The first stage is glycolysis. The second stage is made up of the Krebs cycle and the electron transport chain. It's really important that you know the aerobic respiration equation. Glycolysis takes place in the cytosol of the cell. This is the liquid part of the cytoplasm. It is an anaerobic process. This means that it does not require oxygen. Glycolysis involves the breaking of a glucose molecule, a 6-carbon molecule, into two 3-carbon molecules. These 3-carbon molecules are called pyruvic acid. During this reaction, a small amount of energy is released. The energy that is released is of the form of 2 ATP and 2 NADH. The 2 ATP is formed when 2 ADP and a 2-phosphate join. The 2 NADH is produced when 2 NAD plus 4 electrons plus 2 hydrogens join. Now we will look at stage 2 of aerobic respiration. Stage 2 is composed of the Krebs cycle and the electron transport chain. It is an aerobic stage, meaning that it needs oxygen to occur. It is made up of a complex series of reactions involving many steps. During stage 2, there is a large amount of energy released. It takes place in the mitochondria. The Krebs cycle takes place in the matrix of the mitochondria. The electron transport chain takes place in the cristae or folds of the mitochondria. Let's have a closer look at the Krebs cycle. The Krebs cycle starts when the pyruvic molecule produced during glycolysis enters into the mitochondria and it is converted into a 2-carbon molecule. This is known as acetyl-CoA. The 3-carbon molecule gets converted into a 2-carbon molecule with the loss of a carbon molecule in the form of carbon dioxide. NADH is also released. The 2-carbon molecule, the acetyl-CoA, then enters into a cycle. In this cycle, CO2 is released, NADH is released, and ATP is released. ATP, CO2 and NADH are the products of the Krebs cycle. A common question that they can ask you is to name the products and the fates of the products of the Krebs cycle. And that just means what do they go on to do. So, in plants, the carbon dioxide is used for photosynthesis, and in animals, the carbon dioxide is exhaled during respiration. The ATP is used to power other metabolic reactions, and the NADH enters into the electron transport chain. In the electron transport chain, the NADH molecule produced in the Krebs cycle travels the short distance to the cristae in the mitochondria. This is the folds in the mitochondria. The NADH molecule is broken down. The two electrons travel down the electron transport chain, given energy to form ATP. As electrons pass from electron acceptor to electron acceptor, they lose some of the energy. Any energy not used to make ATP is lost as heat. At the end of the chain, the low energy electron combines with a hydrogen molecule and oxygen to form water. As this is an aerobic process, this is where the oxygen comes from. In summary, this is the two stages of aerobic respiration side by side with each other. At the start of the video, I said it was really important that you know the equation for aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration is the release of energy from food using oxygen. The food source here is glucose. Oxygen is needed in this process. Note the oxygen at the end of the electron transport chain. CO2 is produced in this reaction. Note the CO2 produced in the Krebs cycle. Water is also produced in this reaction. Notice the water at the end of the electron transport chain. And finally, energy is produced in this reaction. This energy is of the form NADH and ATP produced throughout the cycle.